Hey guys, it's the Gimbish Glob here, and I really like Dark Souls. Dark Souls 1 to be specific. I like the other two a lot, but not as much as the first one. It just holds a very special place to me. And an interesting memory I have with the Dark Souls series is that even before I played it, I used to watch a lot of videos on it. And one of them I remember, because it was a video by Game Theory, and I like Game Theory. But it wasn't a theory, it was part of his series Deadlock, which is just debates about video games. And I remember watching it, and I hadn't played it, I didn't know the context of it, and I thought, oh, that was a fine video. And then I went back to rewatch it. Now, the thing about this video is that every single point about Dark Souls made by Gerard the Completionist, who is arguing against it, is completely fucking wrong and insane. That's right, they got the Completionist, so, you know, it's hard to look back on this video fondly, even if you agreed with what he said, considering the charity fraud. But I'm not focusing on that. I'm not focusing on anything else that the Completionist has even said about Dark Souls. I'm just gonna focus on this video, because I think it is fascinatingly terrible. Let's get going. Now, I'm just going to be focusing on the points Gerard makes against Dark Souls in this video. Trust me, MatPat doesn't really refute any of them. I don't know why they didn't acknowledge how terrible some of his points are. Maybe it just would ruin the flow. It just would go against whatever MatPat wanted to say. I don't know. MatPat doesn't even say that many interesting stuff in favor of it, just generally gestures at it being immersive and difficult, which, yeah, I agree with, but, you know, you should probably say more than that if you want to argue why it's good. So I'm not going to be talking about MatPat. I'm just going to be talking about the arguments that the Completionist makes in the video.
First, you have no idea where to go at any given time,
which provides you a great experience where you're discovering and connecting with a world independent of any obvious guideposts.
Except for when it doesn't. Yes, it's great you get to discover your own path, but when the most essential item in the game also happens to be the most absurdly hidden, yeah, a little bit of direction, a clue, anything would be nice. I, of course, am talking about the Rusted Iron Ring.
Ugh, this is gonna hurt, huh?
Oh yeah. This ring, which enables you to quickly walk through water, an ability, mind you, that is necessary for huge chunks of the game, can only be found by leaping off an elevator onto a somewhat secret platform, leaping into another ledge in a game that is far from a platformer, let's be honest, then climbing up a tower and crouching in a bird's nest so you can be flown back to the tutorial level. Without reading a strategy guide or an online tutorial, you would never know this.
The reason this point sucks is actually pretty simple. The rusted iron key isn't necessary. It's completely optional. So that's the interesting thing about this video, right? Gerard just, lies. So you really don't get to engage with any part of his argument on any level, because the entire point is absolutely nothing. What's to even do with that argument? Everyone in the comments point that out, too. The thing is, it gets not necessarily worse from there, but it stays consistently this bad throughout the entire 11-minute video.
Think so?
Sure, but that doesn't excuse the game for being sloppy.
Oh, okay, hey there. Let's not resort to name calling.
But it's true, from the first moments of the game. For example, you get to select your starting gift. Knowing that this is a hard game, I go with a Tiny Beans ring, whose description says it slowly regenerates health. After not seeing my health go up, I read online to find out that it actually increases the amount of health you have slightly, not that you regenerate health. If it's a typo, it's sloppy. If it's on purpose, it's lying to the player.
This is probably the most reasonable point the Completionist makes in the entire video, and I still think it kind of sucks. Okay, it's not lying. It's a mistake. We know this because they changed the description in 2018's Dark Souls Remastered. That wasn't out when this video came out, so I'm not holding that against them. But, I don't know, you could probably figure it out at the time that it's a translation error. The game was made in Japan. It doesn't seem like it's that much of a stretch. But my main problem is, okay, so there's one translation error, there's one problem, there's one tiny example of the game being sloppy. Because let's be real, no one is gonna choose that item anyway. They're just gonna choose the master key, because even if you think it slowly regenerates health, the entire, everyone has been saying for like a decade, choose the master key. So like, and everyone on their first playthrough, I think, would maybe choose that too. It's kind of hard for me to view it from that perspective. And in any case, this is such a tiny detail that, like, how does this prove that there's a trend here? He says, for example, at the beginning, but really this is the only example. So, like, what's even to do with this? The game made a mistake? That's like saying the game's bosses are bad because it has the bed of chaos. It's a nothing point. It's dumb.
Point being this, GLaDOS in Portal lying to you? Different because she's an unreliable narrator. NPCs in Dark Souls lying to you? Fine, it's that sort of world, I buy it. But the inventory screen being flat out wrong, that's truly unfair even for a game that breaks conventions. Because a player needs something to let them know what the rules of the world are. I want to be a pyromancer, and obviously, I see that the intelligence stat is for magic abilities. So, for my first 7 levels, I dump my experience points into intelligence. After not seeing any improvement in my character, I read online to find that pyromancy, despite it being about fire-like spells, actually has nothing to do with intelligence, and that I should be leveling up dexterity instead? Thanks, Obama, and don't even get me started on the item humanity. Perhaps the most crucial gameplay mechanic affecting everything from your stats to the way NPCs treat you, and I'm left to basically reverse engineer to figure out what the hell the programming in the game is all about.
I left in 2 points there, because one of them is extremely easy to acknowledge. The humanity point, I have no idea what he's talking about. I didn't find humanity to be complex at all. The game explains it to you. He doesn't go in depth on this. It's very strange. The pyromancy point is harder to acknowledge, but it's still pretty obviously dumb. Like, you can check the pyromancy flame item to see that it doesn't scale with any stats. You need to upgrade it to make it more powerful, which, you know, kind of leads to some people who haven't played the game thinking, wait, well, he mentioned dexterity. That's because if you level up dexterity enough, your casting time becomes slightly shorter, so you can just do it quicker. To phrase this like that's the most important thing ever makes it seem like the game is hiding this ultra important information. Like, no, it's a neat little secret, essentially. It's a bit helpful to know, but it's kind of just nothing.
Fair to the gamer. But even if you inserted a halfway decent tutorial and a bit more direction into how to get and use some of these essential items at the time of when you need them, what are you left with? Lackluster fighting mechanics.
Wow, being trapped in that game really made you angsty toward it, huh?
I was watching Egoraptor's sequelized video on Ocarina of Time, and something occurred to me. Dark Souls has the same problems. People think Ocarina is incredible, and that Z-targeting for fighting is super exciting and immersive. But in the end, that fighting boils down to time. Wasted time waiting for the enemy to attack or to drop their guard so you can attack. Dark Souls is the same way. Block, block, hit, block, block, hit. Or if it's a boss, run around behind it, smack, 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 run around before the area of effect spell kicks in. That's practically every single enemy.
This point pisses me off just the most. Like, okay, ignoring the rant about Ocarina of Time in there, which is completely off topic, you didn't need to say that. To describe a game's combat system, to describe the entire, like, content of the game in, like, the simplest, most, like, this game is stupid, like, terms possible, and act like that means the game is bad is just idiotic. Like, imagine, it's like going on one of those, like, Twitter threads, which are like, describe your favorite movie in the stupidest way possible, and then legitimately thinking all the movies in that thread are bad. It's such a dumb argument, and the worst part is if you try to, like, elaborate on it and say, no, there's more complexity, everyone's gonna look at you and the guy who made the argument is gonna go, cope much? It's so dumb. It's an idiotic argument. You are deliberately not engaging with the content of the game. I don't know why you're even here, dude. You came here to debate whether Dark Souls is good, and your arguments are like nothing. Beforehand, I was just convinced that he actually liked Dark Souls and was just wanted to be on MatPat's channel. But I think he just genuinely disliked it for all these fucking awful reasons, which makes this video just infuriating to watch. It's an amazing video, really.
There is this unbelievably frustrating section called Sen's Fortress that has you platforming your way all the way to the top, walking narrow pathways, avoiding traps, dealing with these really obnoxious enemies, and you finally get to the roof only to see this giant in the distance. And I stood there, watching it move, calculating whether or not this creature posed a threat to me. Because if I died at that point, I would have to go back to the first bonfire I was at and start all over again. But that, Gerard, is fear. That is stakes. And that is good game design. Design that gets you to care about what happens to your character.
So then what did happen, Matt?
I died when a giant hidden behind me threw an explosive boulder.
Cheap death, Matt. Cheap death.
Perhaps. But
I'm gonna interrupt MatPat to give my own butt in on the situation. First of all, there is a checkpoint in Sen's Fortress that's a bit hidden, but it's not that hard to find. You should be exploring anyway. There's also a shortcut, so you're not gonna have to go through the whole level again, even if you don't find that one bonfire. But the main point is that the giant he's talking about that hit him with the boulder, the way to get to him is a staircase right behind the Iron Golem's fog wall. It's very easy to find, so it's not a cheap death. It's just expecting you to have the bare minimum of environmental awareness. Not that I'm saying, like, MatPat sucks at Dark Souls because he died to the Iron Golem. It's just, like, you can't say the game is bad because that's how you died. That's, like, again, it's a nothing argument. You're just picking a random death that is, like, unexpected, I guess, and saying, this is bad. Like, that's like saying, the Taurus demon, if he kills you, that's bad because he just pops out of nowhere. Like, you're speaking nonsense. It's a arbitrary example, it seems. It's awful, frankly. Alright, then we get to the closing arguments of the video. MatPat talks about Sif for a bit to prove how the game is emotional. Yeah, I agree with that. And Gerard offers his complaints on the ending of the game. So let's see what he has to say for his very last argument. I'm sure it won't be just as bad as all the other arguments.
But a game still has to be playable and enjoyable to play in order for it to be good, Matthew. Players shouldn't have to reverse hack the programming algorithms to figure out the effects of items or stats, and they certainly shouldn't be lied to about what an item does by the inventory screen. Combat shouldn't be this repetitious slog, and it should be all worth something. The ending of Dark Souls is the modern-day equivalent of congratulations, a hard, tedious slog that results in an ending that isn't satisfying and doesn't bring you any closure. You compared the game to an empty vessel that players fill in. I got the reverse. By the time I finished the game with a lackluster boss fight and obtuse endings, I was the one feeling left empty.
wow. That was a really depressing ending. Like Dark Souls!
I could rant for literal hours on why he's wrong here, but I'm gonna keep it as short as I can. The fight against Gwyn is really genius. It's purposely meant to sort of make the player wonder, wow, this is sad. Look, he's so pathetic now. He's gone hollow. That's the point. It's supposed to subvert your expectations there. So calling it just a disappointing final boss feels, I don't know, it feels like you're kind of simplifying what's going on here, but fine, I get that plenty of people don't like the Gwyn fight. Who am I to argue against that, I guess? But the ending, like, I can't believe the ending was obtuse. Like, you can't? Like, really? This is Dark Souls. The entire goddamn game is fucking, like, obtuse. They barely tell you anything. What do you expect? Like, Framped to come out of nowhere and be like, all right, now that you finished the game, I can explain the entire story now. And by the way, you got the good ending. This is the bad ending. Here are all the people who made the game. This is the credits. Buy all 57 new Dark Souls games. Because Dark Souls has to be fucking like Call of Duty slop that explains everything, I guess. It's the last nothing burger of an argument on an absolutely horrid video. I dislike it, and I've been thinking about this fucking video for years now, and I'm glad to finally get this all out of my system. Bye.